Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqna.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Sarah Tobin is an emotional freedom technique therapist and trainer who works with her clients all over the world to help them release birth trauma, ancestral trauma, limiting beliefs, and emotional blocks. She hosts corporate workshops teaching EFT as a self-management tool for stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. And now we get to have an absolutely amazing conversation about how we can use tapping to find our authentic self. Here is an awesome conversation with Sarah Tobin. Things that I most fascinated by, as people like say what they want to talk about and here in the podcast and whatever, is I'm always curious, like, how did you end up in a circumstance where thinking about our authentic self is something
Mhm.
that's like at the front of your mind, at the front of your experience, at the front of the work that you're doing? Like, how did you end up here? And we'll use that kind of as a
Wow.
gateway to kind of step into the process and all that sort of stuff.
That's a good, very deep intro question. Thank you. Goodness, because the route to me now, the journey that I've been on in the past 10 years, has revolved around trauma, and tapping came in as the tool to support myself with that. So,
Mhm.
in a quick synopsis, this year in November will be 10 years since we lost our daughter Alice after birth. And
Mhm.
it was that the grief and the trauma of that experience that propelled me into tapping, which became my savior tool and supported my severe PTSD recovery. And then I was like, okay, this is incredible. I need to share this with more mums. So many women struggle with the birth process, the fertility journey, grief and loss on the way, and so on. And so originally, all of my focus was on that, like that trauma piece, trauma recovery.
Mhm.
As I've progressed with tapping, and as I have moved through time and moved through experiences, I've come to use tapping as a way of like remembering who I am at a soul level, and almost this spiritual revelation, that once the trauma has subsided, it became clear to me that I didn't know who I was anymore. Like, the not that the trauma had defined me so much, but that even before the trauma, I didn't know who I was anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's been just a process of um unraveling and unveiling and reconnecting to parts of me that I abandoned a really, really, really long time ago.
And it's interesting as you say that, just as we're working our way through these 24 hours, the number of times that that has already specifically come up. That the work is about rediscovering who we are and what is there and shedding that stuff away. And so I love the fact that, like, just in the ether of all of these conversations, we're landing in that spot. So
Nice.
then as we kind of dovetail out of that, then, like, I love a good definition, not because I need you to agree with my definition, but it makes it easier for us to communicate if we're like defining things in like defining, like knowing how you're defining things when you use that vocabulary.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you say authentic self, what does that mean to you as an
Mm.
individual, as a practitioner, as a parent? Like, as you think of that term, what does authentic self mean for you?
Yeah. It means that my soulful self,
Mm.
the version of me that chose to come here, that is on its own little divine mission, perhaps that's, a way of me interpreting that, me looking at that, um, that hasn't had the conditioning, hasn't had the expectation put on it, hasn't had the traumas, and is my true expression of self.
And so, what does that then look like moment to moment or day to
Mm,
day or as you're like engaging with life? Because it's not that I disagree with anything you said. I think I
yeah,
love that soulful self and what that means. And we now go, okay, great. This is what I understand. Like when
what does it mean?
I'm stepping into the day, yeah, what does that look like for you? Like, what
Yeah.
does it look like when you're successful? What does it look like when you're unsuccessful? How do you know the difference between those two things?
Yeah. So it helps me to find my business and my money earning work
Mhm.
as like intuitively led. So I will be able to hear the clarity of my purpose because I have reconnected, rather than letting my ego drive my my choice of work. So for example,
Mhm.
so like prior to leaving corporate world, it would have been and moving into this full time, it was very easy to stay in that corporate job because ego was telling me it's a secure job. You earn
Yep.
X amount a month. You have flexibility. You have freedom to pick up your children when you need to. They understand family. You have everything you need here in this corporate role. And the other side of me inside was crying, literally crying, because I felt so far removed from my mission, my purpose in life. And like
Mhm.
I didn't even know what my purpose was at that time. I just knew that it wasn't in that area. I knew I wasn't fulfilling some kind of potential. I wasn't making a difference. I wasn't helping people in the way I thought I could, even though I didn't know what that looked like. So I could have stayed. So it this connection with self and trusting my intuition allows me to see my ego voice, which is useful at times, versus maybe my soul purpose or my soul expression, and allows me to make decisions based on that. So especially on a like work front or a money earning front, because it doesn't feel like work to me, um I'm able to make decisions that feel right to me because I have been able to strip back things and I've been able to reconnect with myself, and I feel my decisions in my body. I feel the right calling, so to speak. And I can also identify now what's ego and how to work with that in a really compassionate way, rather than disowning that part of myself, abandoning that part of myself, looking down at that part of myself. So maybe that's how I work with it in a professional way.
Yeah.
And then in a kind of a human way, in a real me way or a mum way, I think it helps me have clear boundaries because like I know what I like and what I don't like. And I think because I know myself, I'm able to discern, I'm able to make decisions, I'm able to invest in myself. I'm able to say, do you know what? I really need some creativity in my life. I'm going to do an art class, a weekly art class. Whereas before, I wouldn't have maybe known that I needed that and not given myself that aspect. So you see, but like when you take away the conditions and the expectations of others and the traumas, you're just able to understand and know yourself better. And so then I use that as a compass, I use my body as a compass to guide me in how I respond and how I respond to my children. One of my sons has neurodiversity, and like he is teaching me so much about expectation and demand and the pressures that we put on people. And so I'm trying to learn from that and guide him and support him in a different way, because I am currently supporting myself with the tapping tool, so that oh god, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to be more loving and compassionate to him and myself as we go through this. And I think that I'm using the tool to support me in that way. Yeah.
And So one of the kind of cornerstones of my work is like, it's not that I'm trying to be emotion free, but I want to have a proportionate, well-informed emotional response. You know, it's good that I'm afraid of tigers. It's bad if I never left my apartment here in Brooklyn because in the Bronx Zoo 9 miles away there is a tiger.
Yeah.
And so, again, like I resonate with everything that you're saying. How then in the moment, or how then in process, do we recognize this is something that's coming from the authentic version from me? This is something that is coming from the ego. This is something that is
Mm,
a inaccurate story about how I am or how the world works because of a trauma or an experience I had in the past. Like
yeah.
one of the things I recognize, I am a notoriously bad eyewitness to my own experience. I think when I describe what is going on, I'm telling you the truth and I act as if that is the truth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. So
Mm,
once we recognize, like, I am informed by this authentic version of me that was created at the beginning of time or wherever that happened. And there is the time and the culture and the place and the stories and my lived experience and the egoic self that's trying to do it. Like, how do I discern which one of those voices is which when I'm trying to create healing and transformation?
I think the first voice or the first feeling you have is your intuition.
Mhm,
Very quickly afterwards, and it's a quieter voice, it's more subtle. Very quickly afterwards steps in the ego with the
mhm.
buts and the what ifs, and that's not safe, and don't put yourself out there. Let's stay in our comfort zone. So the critical, louder, negative voice is the ego. And
Mhm,
your soul's voice is the gentle nudging. It's the, oh, that could be a good idea. Or what if that could be possible? Or, when something, I just get ideas just land. These things land in my body and I feel them like it's like a vibration. I will get excited over it, and then I watch and I wait for the ego now
mhm.
sometimes, and I can hear, "Oh, but you like, who are you to do that? What would
Yeah.
people think of you publicly if you did that?" And so on. And so now I'm just like, "Okay, I see you. I acknowledge you. That's okay. It's okay that you're there. It's okay that a part of me feels scared. It's a part. It's not the whole me. It's not the soul me. It's very much a part of me, but it's not a huge part. It doesn't have to be a huge part."
And one of the things I love about that is you haven't mentioned using an intervention yet. We're just noticing. And
Yeah.
and I think that there is so much value in just noticing. Like, oftentimes I'll be working with a client and a tail ender will come up, or they'll give a reason why they can't do something. And I'll just go, whose voice is that? And you can literally see them go, huh? And they start to notice what's going on. It's like, oh, that sounds like my father. That sounds like my
Yeah.
boss. That sounds like, and immediately it kind of it it disempowers it a little bit just by noticing it.
Yeah.
One of the things that Gary Craig used to talk about in the early tapping DVDs is he called them the comedies of our minds. And for me, I thought farce is an even better word, that when I take the thought and I drag it into the light of day, it looks ridiculous.
Mm,
Someone in a scary mask hiding in a dark corner looks really silly. We shine a light on them and it's obviously a plastic mask and it's obviously something that is fake and we can see what's going on there. And so I
yeah.
love that the first step that you're talking about is just noticing, oh, I felt this, then I felt that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And what that
Yeah.
also does for me, like, I can feel if I'm using a process like that, is it immediately takes the pressure off me of solving the problem, knowing what to say, how to tap, what to release, and just going, okay, I have multiple, like, one of my favorite things is I love non-native speakers trying to explain something complicated, because a
Mhm.
non-native speaker has significantly fewer words to articulate something that they know in their native language. And years ago, on a reality competition show, there was a fashion designer who did not speak English as her first language, and she said, it's like inside of my brain there are 100 little brains and they're fighting with each other. And I'm like, that's such a great way of being of two minds. But that required her to just notice what the
Yeah,
experience was. And all of a sudden, it's not overwhelming. It's like, oh, right now I'm at war with myself. How do I, as a creative, respond to the fact that right now I'm at war with myself? And
yeah.
so I think that's just so beautiful and elegant, just as the first step of going, what do I notice?
Yeah,
Like,
and a lot of people don't even know that they're not noticing. They're
yeah,
so disconnected from, and I was there. I was totally one of those people, not just because of the trauma, but just the way I was living my life. I was
yeah.
not in my body, I was in my head, and I wasn't connected to a higher power, an inner power, a soul self. That was just something I had forgotten. And it was the loss of a daughter that made me think, God, there has to be something more. I can't go back to my life and just keep going the way I was going. So it began this soul searching journey, I suppose. And I used tapping, and I still use tapping in quite a spiritual way, which I love because it's not fundamentally a spiritual tool in any way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
but it really lends itself beautifully to working with other energies. Like sometimes I call in color, like the frequency of color while I'm tapping and so on, or the energy of my higher self, my inner child, future self. There's so what I love it, it's so adaptable. You can use it in so many ways.
And I love the fact that you're talking about color. I love using color as a resource delivery system. A client's like, "What do you want?" "Well, I want some courage." I'm like, "Awesome. I know you don't know the answer to this, but if you did, what color's courage?" They say
Yeah,
blue. "Awesome. Deep blue, robin egg blue. What is it?" "Great." Just see that blue conveying that towards you as you tap and using that
yeah,
metaphor. And so I
yeah,
love the fact that you're doing that. And the
yeah.
other thing is, you're saying, it's not necessarily a spiritual practice. For me, like, I spent a year of my life carrying a little pink eraser around in my pocket. And the reason why I did that is because every single time I touched it, I remind myself, this is my work is just to let go of what is unuseful. And so for me, that
Yeah,
authentic self that you're talking about, that soul self that you're talking about, that choose to come into the world at this moment time,
mm,
like for me, it is an explicitly spiritual practice, because I'm just erasing the things away that are preventing me from seeing myself at that particular
yes,
level, even
yeah,
if it's not dogmatic and religious in that particular way. But
yeah,
it's about that, again, that authentic self that is me multidimensionally. Like, we live in this, I have a feeling from what you're saying that you agree with this kind of, that we live in this duality of I'm a physical being in a moment in time, and I'm an eternal being that is not. And I'm
yeah.
both of those things simultaneously. And how do we reconcile that as we're navigating this wacky experience?
Absolutely. You also referred to something earlier in your bringing things to light
Yeah.
section, and I kind of thought it'd be good to come back to is the shadow piece.
Yeah.
Like the we have these parts of ourselves, the saboteurs potentially is a word for them, or the ego, but like fragments of that ego that
Hmm.
makes a whole. Um, that is basically narratives and stories and beliefs and emotions that we've ignored, suppressed, hidden, felt shameful over, don't even know exist because they were created so early in our
Hmm.
lifetime. And they're all hidden. And that's, I think, what we're doing with this work is like shining that light on, looking, investigating, being curious and open with compassion rather than blame or shame, and finding those blocks because they are literally creating dams. Thinking of like a water dam. um they're blocking the flow of life force energy, they're blocking abundance, they're blocking love, they're blocking joy and peace and all sorts of things. yet we don't even know what they are. We don't even know that they exist. And I find tapping is an amazing way of being able to identify what those things are. What is holding the water back? What is holding life back for you? And then we bring it to the light. We share. Like, I think tapping isn't natural. The process of tapping is naturally acknowledgement, like awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, forgiveness, and love. That's the process you go through as you support the release of these emotions and beliefs, and then everything changes.
Okay, and did you say 3 or 4 things? So there was acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement. Oh, no, awareness first.
Oh,
Awareness.
yeah. Awareness.
Awareness,
Yep.
acknowledgement, compassion, forgiveness, and love.
So those 5 things should be written down. Like, you should, like, when we're sitting down to tap, just looking at those and reminding ourselves to go
Yeah.
through that. I just love that as a little, I'm all for a framework. I love having a framework as a way, because one of the beautiful things about a tool set like tapping is it is something that in certain scenarios for certain issues, it's appropriate and it's safe for us to be doing self-work. And the difficulty sometimes of doing self-work is I am doing the work and I'm having the work done on. I am creating a safe space and I'm being inside of a safe space. And so by having little frameworks like that, it gives us the ability to like have some guidance. Like, what does it look like for me to do this? What does it look like for me to do that as I'm working through those 5 little things? I think that creates a really beautiful framework when someone is sitting down to do some work. The other thing
Yeah.
that you said in there, you said my favorite word in all of transformation. You said the word curious. And for me, like, when I am curious about something, I'm solving a problem in a more higher frequency, energetic way. Like, I'm struggling for vocabulary of it, but I'm not trying to put out a fire. I'm like, huh, I wonder
Mm,
why this
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
which allows that gentleness and that compassion to come in, because I'm not coming from a wagging finger set of judgment. Why did you do this wrong? It's like, huh, I wonder why I chose to respond in that particular way. I wonder why this is the emotion that's at the front of my experience right now. I wonder why I had this shot of insight and all of a sudden I shut it down in 8 different ways. So I didn't even indulge in the idea at all. And like, for me, it's just like constantly reminding myself to be in that state of curiosity just makes transformation so much easier and so much more accessible, because it's not a fight, it's a question. And it's easier for
Yeah.
me to energetically be in that way.
Yeah. And you can use that in reframing by
Yeah.
using the phrase, what if?
Yeah.
What if I could do this?
Yeah.
What if this has always been my destiny?
Yeah.
And that can either bring you to the block because you
Yep.
immediately think, oh, but you can't, because you aren't able to. You were told you couldn't write as a kid, that you'd
Yeah.
never write a book or whatever. Or you were told that you can't present, that you're a terrible presenter. Or it could equally bring that frequency of excitement and joy and anticipation. And then you follow the thread, I suppose, from that place of
Yeah.
questioning.
My version of that particular phrase is I'm open to the possibility that,
Mhm.
because what I'm not like, I wonder if this could happen. I'm open to the possibility that, because it is not declarative, it
Yes.
immediately puts us, because when I do something that is declarative, there's going to be a part of me that's going to be like, no, we don't want to do that
Shuts
thing.
it
But I'm
down.
like,
Yeah.
I'm open to the possibility of that. I wonder if this happened, what would be the outcome? Why would that be great? Like, it softens the entire process for us. And I
Mm.
think one of the things that, like, I've been working professionally with clients for 17 years now. One of the things that has changed dramatically, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years of my work, is the rate in which I do my work. And it is so much slower. It is so much
Mhm.
less trying to get in there and find the root cause and whatever, and asking questions like that. So we're just more incrementally following the thread versus going, I'm going to go for the bullseye and see if I can hit the bullseye exactly,
In
and letting
one hit wonder. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, I'm so thrilled that as a community, the vocabulary of 1 minute miracles and 1 session miracles have
Mm,
gone out of our vocabulary. Like, those happen, like 100%. I've experienced it in my life. I've experienced with my clients. I'm sure you're in the same circumstance, but the fact that that's no longer the expectation
yeah.
is such a lovely, healthy thing as we're approaching all of this.
Yeah. And like if you look at tapping compared to other therapies, we're already much quicker
That's right. And we
in,
forget
in,
that.
in
Yeah.
efficiency. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That
exactly.
we, happiness is outcome divided by expectation. And
Mm,
if I'm evaluating the success of this on that really fast session I did yesterday, I'm going to have one response. If I'm evaluating it against another modality or another intervention that takes 10 times longer, then I'm happy because of what my expectancy is in that.
yes. Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things that you glanced off of in the beginning that I'd love to do a little deeper dive into is you mentioned the way that past experiences, past stories, past traumas get in the way of us showing up as our authentic self.
Mm.
How how does that happen? How have you experienced that firsthand, clients, research? Like how do you notice that being something that is true?
Well, the way beliefs are created, as we know, are through experience, and
Hmm.
we assess each experience through the lens of good and bad. And we're also negatively biased, so we will put more weight to a negative experience.
Yep.
And then the belief is shaped and created in our psyche, in our mindset, that becomes a safety strategy to stop us from having painful experience again.
Yep.
So when we're running, I'm not good enough, or recently I've been working on my own abundance things, and something that's come up recently was money is the root of all evil. And like
Right.
on the surface, you'd be like, I don't believe that, like we all know that's not true.
Right.
But collectively, energetically, we are there's a web of beliefs that we will pick up culturally, we will pick up from religion, from parents, ancestrally, and so on. And like my line, I don't know for sure, but I have connected with the famine as a source of limiting beliefs around
Hmm.
lack and worthiness and
Yeah.
money. So the Irish famine, and there's many famines going around the world, and we know what's happening in the world today. The impact on these collective experiences can be holding us back from earning past a certain way or past a certain level, earning in a particular way, believing I have to work 9 to 5 in order to earn money, or all these myriad of different things that once they're recognized, once they are made aware of, once you can accept and love and forgive and let go of these things, then it just paves the way, it just clears the way for the flow to return. So I mentioned that kind of earlier, this dam, these beliefs, not just our own experiences, but from the collective, from our parents, from ancestral, even what we bring in on a soul level, that is like a soul purpose to clear. So I believe that we come in with certain beliefs and patterns already that are meant that we're meant to work on, that we're meant to look at, meant to heal. And so they in effect also create and shape our experiences that we have to navigate and heal from. And it's the healing of those in this lifetime that can help with the ripple effect through other lifetimes. Um so yeah, I think it's complex. There's not one single root of a belief. They come from all sorts of places, they come from all sorts of experiences. And tapping is an amazing way of finding what those blocks are, and then clearing the way, clearing the path.
So you like I love the way you're talking about these are adaptive strategies to keep us safe. I
Yeah.
don't put my hand on the stove because I learned
Oh,
when I touch something hot
yep,
that is dangerous.
exactly.
So that's an adaptive strategy that is useful. So, how then, from the inside out, being a notoriously bad eyewitness to my own experience, how do I tell the difference between a healthy adaptive strategy and an unhealthy adaptive strategy?
Is it making you feel good? For me, it comes back to
Um,
feeling. Yeah. So if something feels contractive, closed, if it's a thought. So for example, I have the goal of doing a TED talk. So I have a personal goal of doing a TED talk. If I had a goal of doing TED talk, maybe I do.
mhm.
And then I'm running the belief it's not safe to be seen. That's obviously the dam holding me back from pursuing that goal. It's not safe to be seen is obviously doesn't make me feel good, but tuning into the visualizing me in the situation of doing the TED talk, how does that feel in my body? And that's when I get the electricity, the vibration, the yes from my body. And that's how I know that that's something worth pursuing. And that the safety strategy of not being seen is not serving that particular issue or that goal anymore. So in the past, that might have worked really well. So that might have saved me in my teenage years, right? But over time, you would think, wouldn't you? You'd think logically that your brain would go, oh, we don't need that anymore. Actually, everything's good now. Sarah has presented. She's in a corporate job. She's doing great. We don't need that one. We could just throw that one in the bin. Unfortunately, the mind, it almost becomes more deeply embedded. These beliefs that we have just get deeper and deeper and deeply embedded, that it's just much harder to let go of without the subconscious reprogramming, which where tapping comes in to support. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it does. So, would you be willing to lead us through some tapping and being able to just like clear some of that crap and find our way to our authentic self? Easy for
Yeah.
me to say.
Okay. All right. So tune in on a scale of 0 to 100. We get everyone to do this, but you can answer as well. How authentic do you feel you are out of 100?
So for me, that
100
is
is I'm super authentic. Yeah, I
yeah.
am. I
So
am.
so I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench, or as you would say, a spanner in the works.
Uh-huh.
Is that it depends on the context. So like
Okay.
professionally, like 98, in my familiar relationships, in my personal relations, super, super high. In the way I show up in the world in a romantic relationship, super, super low. So for me, it's not
Okay.
just who I am, but it's the context in which that is
Context
happening.
of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So so maybe you think about this in the context where it is lower for you
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
and everyone else too. So if there's a particular part of life where you feel unable to show your authentic self, because for some people that could be work,
Yep.
um, rather than the personal relationship piece. Okay. So
Yep.
let's everybody tuning in to that energy and just thinking about not being your authentic self. How does that make you feel in this particular area of your life? So it might be sad that you don't feel that authentic self. Might even feel disappointed,
For me, I feel small.
small. Okay. Withdrawn, kind of like
No, actually, like
closed,
physically smaller.
physically smaller. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We can use that. Okay. So even though I feel small in my sense of self,
Even though I feel small in my sense of self.
mm, and part of me doesn't feel good enough.
And part of me doesn't feel good enough.
And a part of me might be afraid to show who I really am.
And there's a part of me that might be afraid to show who I really am.
I choose to forgive, love, and accept myself anyway.
I choose to love, forgive, and accept myself anyway.
Okay, we're just going to go into top of the head. I use the hand points, so I will be using them if that's okay.
Great.
Oh, I feel so small
I feel so small
when I think about my true self
when I think of my true self
and showing up in the world the way I want to.
and showing up in the world in the way I want to.
And in some parts of my world, I am really tall.
In some parts of my world, I'm really tall.
And I feel really safe and confident.
I feel really safe and confident.
And I feel my true self.
And I feel my true self.
But in other parts of my life, I feel the
But in other
opposite.
parts of my life,
I feel the opposite.
I feel the opposite.
I feel so small.
I feel so small.
And it doesn't feel safe.
And it doesn't feel safe.
It doesn't feel safe to show my true self.
And it doesn't feel safe to show my true self.
Something must have happened
Something must have happened
to make me withdraw like that
to make me withdraw like that
and to abandon my true self.
and to abandon my true self.
And maybe many, many things have happened.
And maybe many, many things have happened
Through the course of my life
through the course of my life
that have caused me to abandon my true self.
which have caused me to abandon my true self.
Yeah. And all those things would have been painful.
And all those things would have been painful.
And I must have found them really hard.
And I must have found them really hard.
But I don't blame myself.
But I don't blame myself.
I did what I had to at the time.
I did what I had to at the time.
And I was just creating safety strategies.
And I was just creating safety strategies.
Creating lots of different beliefs.
Creating lots of different beliefs.
That would make me feel safe.
That would make me feel safe.
That would help me feel like I belonged.
That would help me feel like I belonged.
And help me feel loved.
And to help me feel loved.
Help me feel wanted.
To help me feel wanted.
Help me feel worthy.
To help me feel worthy.
So I've dimmed my light in this area of my life.
So I've dimmed my light in this area of my life.
So that I wouldn't be hurt again.
So I wouldn't be hurt again.
So I send compassion to all parts of myself.
So I can send compassion to all parts of myself.
All these parts that have been hidden away.
All these parts that have been hidden away.
Parts that don't feel safe to shine.
Parts that don't feel safe to shine.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
They didn't have the tools to help them.
Didn't have the tools to help them.
Yeah. And I have so many more tools now.
I have so many more tools now.
I have a way of letting go.
I have a way of letting go.
I choose to let go of the energy that's holding me back.
I choose to let go of the energy that's holding me back.
The energy that's blocking me from showing my true self.
The energy that's blocking me from showing my true self.
The energy that's dimming my light.
The energy that's dimming my light.
All the beliefs that are dimming my light.
All the beliefs that are dimming my light.
The beliefs that are keeping me small.
The beliefs that are keeping me small.
I send them all love.
I send them all love.
And maybe someday I'll figure out what they all are.
And maybe someday I'll figure out what they all are.
But for now, I just send love.
But for now, I just send love.
Yeah, I forgive them.
I forgive them.
They were just trying to help me.
They were just trying to help me.
Yeah. But now I get to decide.
But now I get to decide.
Now I can make a choice.
Now I can make a choice.
To shine my light as bright as I want.
To shine my light as bright as I want.
In all areas of my life.
In all areas of my life.
And I can speak my truth.
And I can speak my truth.
And I can feel safe being seen.
And I can feel safe being seen.
I can feel safe being loved.
I can be safe being loved.
It is safe to be loved.
It is safe to be loved.
It is safe to feel worthy.
It is safe to feel worthy.
I choose to be my true self now.
I choose to be my true self now.
Okay, so we'll stop there. Tuning into that size. Jean, you mentioned small.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
So two things. One, it not only feels bigger, it also feels like it has matured. So it wasn't just like, as tuning into it, it wasn't like it wasn't just, in some ways I originally saw it as just a smaller version of me, but not only is
Child,
it a
inner
smaller, it was
child.
younger. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah.
thing that is we did that, there were like a number of the stories that were being told that kept me in that way were revealed inside of that.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
they're not done. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of I never tap without a pen and a piece of paper in hand. And
Mhm.
when we get to the next break, I'm going to be jotting those particular things down so I don't
Good.
forget those particular stories that came forward. But that
Yeah.
like it was in the like recognizing, oh, you're doing the best they can and extending that sense of compassion is like, oh yeah, I'm acting this way because I was told. I'm acting this way because I was handed
Mhm.
this particular cultural story. I'm acting this way
Yeah.
because this is what I thought was and it was actually right. It wasn't even safe, but this was the right way I'm
Mm.
supposed to be acting in this particular scenario. And again, like dragging them into the light of day, it's like, oh yeah, that is not a useful story. That is
Yeah.
not a useful thing. But just in that, that tapping, it was like, oh, okay. And it's like, kind of like we talked about earlier, this thread, finding
Yeah.
the thread. We have
Yeah.
now found, okay, great. Now, great. These are the next three things
Something
that I
else.
deal with.
Exactly.
Respond
And,
with.
obviously it's very generic and high level,
That's right.
but would, in one-to-one situation, obviously
Of course.
you could bring in, oh, I just had this memory, we'd follow that thread and so on.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it was a way of maybe, shining a light on the area that needed a little bit of
Yeah.
that compassion and acknowledgement.
And the thing I love about that, and this is just has been really informed in my work, is, we were a lot of us when we were formed as tappers, we were told, be as specific as possible. And we interpreted that as we have to be specific in order to be successful.
Mhm.
And in this case, we were as specific as we could be, which then led us to the next thing, which then led us to the next thing, which
Yeah.
then led us to the next thing. And like when I have that healthy relationship with the unfolding of the process, I feel less pressed and less stressed in doing the work of, I figured
Yes.
this out right now and I have to clear this thing and I have to move this from a blah 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 to a blah 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 on a sud scale or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And just being gentle, it's like, okay, what's the next piece of it? What's the next piece of it? What's the next piece of it?
Yeah.
Because like living authentically is not a switch. It's I'm a little more authentic in a few more
Yeah.
settings for a longer
Yeah.
period of time. And
Yeah.
it's a plant that is growing. It is not a
Yeah.
light switch that I'm switching on and off.
Yeah.
And being okay
Exactly.
with that is useful.
Yeah, and it takes time. And I'm a trainer as well, and I really train from an intuitive place. Like I know
Mhm.
it is useful to have process, but honestly, the more intuitive you are with yourself and your client, the better the results will be. And like you said there, just like the next piece, taking
Yeah.
away that pressure from the outcome. So
Yep.
I try to teach detach from the outcome, because then you're not then navigating and guiding the client with an agenda, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel better that you've got to a 2 or a 0. Like
Yeah.
that's not, good for them, because they might not be ready to get to that place, or
And,
that might take
yeah.
weeks to
And,
get
and I
to
love
that
the fact
place.
you used the word agenda. Like recently I recorded a podcast that was letting go of your tapping agenda. And like it's good for me to have direction,
Mm,
but there's a difference between me having direction and trying to create
exactly.
healing. Then I must heal in this way, in this order, through this process.
Yes.
Because when I'm
Yeah.
making that particular plan, I'm making it from the place of needing the healing. So I'm less likely to be able to see the plan very, very clearly. Or when I'm helping a client, I'm standing outside the experience. And so I have insight and
Yes.
experience, but I can't see the entire playing field. And so, like, getting rid of the agenda, but moving in a direction that is useful and helpful. Like, there's like there's nuance in that, but oh my gosh, does it make a huge difference in the way we approach
Yeah,
transformation?
totally. I teach my trainees to like follow the thread. You know, you're just
Yeah.
imagining this thread. You're the detective. You and the
Yep.
client are working to find the roots and and the outcomes of we also want to know what's been how has this been holding me back as well, because also
Yeah.
bringing that awareness then goes, oh my god, I really have the power to change this. And
Yep.
it's the choosing piece can be really useful there. But I was going to say that what my son is teaching me, because he has an aversion to demand and expectation, that I also remove demand and expectation. I'm trying to lower that of myself. I
Mhm.
lower that of clients. I lower it of my other son, of my husband, of my friends, of my family. And actually, when you just look at the lens of life with a lower expectation and lower pressure and lower demand, life is actually much easier.
Yeah. And there's also a difference between like lowering the demand and lowering my what is acceptable. Like we're not saying that, oh, I'm just going to be sufficient with crumbs and that's enough.
No,
That
no,
like
it's
but
different.
there's a way that we can engage with that where I'm going for richness, and again through this lens of curiosity, not demand or expectation, that
Yeah.
changes my relationship to the good things that show up. And when I'm in that
Mm.
state of curiosity, I'm more likely to notice good rich things that I might not have, like the number of things in my life that delighted me that I discovered by accident that I never would have found if I was going off of what I expected was going to bring me joy. Like there'd be so many parts of my life that wouldn't be as rich because I stumbled into things that weren't the expectation, but landed in something that was wonderful.
And that's your authentic self versus your conditioning.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Sarah, thank you very
That's
much
a good
for
note
sharing
to
your
end on.
experience. Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. I really, really appreciate your insight and your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.